Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are going to do a social studies lesson through recording this week instead of reading it in the book. So we are jumping into the Midwest. You guys already read about locks and how a lock works and did a little bit of introduction to the Midwest. So we're going to learn more about the states in the Midwest now. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. We got to go all the way back though. Hang tight. You'll get a quick preview here. Okay, so we have 3, 6, 9, 12 different states in the Midwest region. Again, so these are the states. We call it the Midwest because they're basically right kind of in the middle of the United States. We are the Northeast. We just read about the Southeast where Florida is, and now we're kind of moving to that top section here. Those are 12 states. So we have Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois. That is called Illinois. It's not Illinois. We have Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Ohio is the closest one to us. All right, so here we go. You can see all of the different regions on the map. Northeast, this is where we are. The Southeast, we've already read about. So we're in this green section right here called the Midwest. So this section is kind of directly in the middle of our United States of America. And it's kind of, there's not a lot of action going on in these states specifically. Now, Ohio and Michigan and some of these states over here that are closer to the Northeast region, there's a little bit more action. But you're going to learn once we go into the actual middle parts of the Midwest, you won't see too much going on there. So if you lived in one of the states in the Midwest, you may not see a neighbor for miles. You might have a lot of acres that you live on. Your land is pretty flat there, and we're going to learn about why they call parts of the Midwest Tornado Alley. So here we are. The Midwest contains 12 states, and here they are again: North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, and Iowa. Also, Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. All right, so just some of the history about the Midwest. So Native American people had been living on the land that became known as the Midwest for many, many years before Europeans arrived. Then the French explorers arrived to set up fur trading posts. So we've talked a lot about trading fur for different types of things. So they were doing this to trade for other goods that they needed. Then the Spanish explorers searched the land for gold and other riches. So they came into this land and were looking for some more land, and they were also looking for some of that gold that we know the people rushed to the west for, called the gold rush. But eventually, the native people living there were pushed out by the westward expansion of the settlers. So the people that started living there kind of got pushed out by all of the other people kind of coming in to trade and to look for gold. So that was kind of a bummer for the Native American people that originally first started living there. Now, the land of the Midwest, it has 3 types of physical geography. So that means, what does the land look like? Well, a lot of the land is flat plains. So it's very, very flat. So if we know that it's very, very flat, we know that there's probably a lot of farming. Yeah, there's also some rolling hills, and there are some mountains, but there's a very, very small percentage of mountains. Most of it is very flat plains, and if you went to the Midwest and you looked out, all you would see for a long time is flat, flat land. Now, farming is a big, big part of the land usage in the Midwest. So farming in the Midwest is one of the best things they have to offer. So in the Great Plains states on the west side of this region, many types of wheat are grown. So we're looking at that left side all the way on the left side of the region, kind of the North Dakota, South Dakota area. In the states located around the Great Lakes, there's many different kinds of crops. They can be grown in the soil. So again, we're looking back at the map here. This is the Great Plains region right here. Get my pen here. So this is the Great Plains region right here. It's nice and flat. It's great for farming. Now we know that all of our Great Lakes are right up here. So the Great Lakes region is a little bit different. Now the production, so what do they do and what do they make there? Some of the major industries include farming, big farmers, a lot of miners. They do a lot of shipping because they grow things, so they have to ship it out. They have timber or wood, and manufacturing. The auto industry has a long history of manufacturing in the Midwest. Detroit's nickname is called the Motor City, and you may find out why. Now, natural resources. We know a natural resource is something that comes from the earth that is not man-made. It's just found there. They are materials that are found in the environment, and some of the resources that the Midwest has are coal, so it's mined from the ground, oil, we pump that from the ground, gold, which was in the Black Hills Mountains, forests, and they provide the timber and the wood, and then the wind, so turbines create energy. So you'll see that a lot of these natural resources connect to some of the industries that we just talked about, which makes sense. Okay, the first thing that we're going to learn about is Ohio. That one is the closest to Pennsylvania. Many of you have probably already been to Ohio. Let me scoot this down. Okay, so the state of Ohio was named after the river Ohio. We actually have the Ohio River here in Pittsburgh too, down at the point. The Ohio River was named for the Iroquois word for Oyo, meaning great river. Ohio is nicknamed the Buckeye State because of the Buckeye trees commonly found throughout the Ohio River Valley. Ohio's swallowtail flag is the only non-rectangular United States flag. So all of the flags of the United States, you'll see are a rectangle, but this one is not a complete rectangle. It looks like a little tail. Also, a couple of things in Ohio is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's located in Canton, which is right here. And the Cleveland is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's me. So long live rock and roll. And then I said, remember, I went there in November. I took a little trip to Cleveland, Ohio. And this was a picture of me in front of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Our next state is Indiana. The state of Indiana was named after the Native Americans. Indiana means Indian land. So some fun facts about Indiana is that its nickname is the Hoosier State, but no one is quite sure where the name Hoosier came from. Almost half of all the cropland in Indiana is planted in corn. So corn is a major resource of Indiana. The Indianapolis 500 car race is the biggest sporting event in the world. So that's that big race car race that they have called the Indy 500, and that's actually in Indiana. Here is their state flag. It has 19 stars. The 19th star stands for Indiana being the 19th state admitted into the Union. Just some other fun facts about Indiana is that it makes more popcorn than any other United States state. And the first professional baseball game was actually played in Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1871. So this is kind of what you're going to be doing when you do your state project. You're going to be researching a state and kind of giving me some fun facts about it. Let's move on. Illinois. Illinois is known as the land of Lincoln, as Abraham Lincoln spent most of his life there. Okay? And actually this is him, but Ronald Reagan was the 40th president, and he actually was from Illinois. Now these are interesting facts to me. The tallest building in the United States is the Sears Tower in Chicago. which is in Illinois. And the tallest man in the world was born in Elton in 1918. He weighed 491 pounds and stood 8 feet 11 inches tall and wore a shoe size of 37. Now, just for reference, you know that I am about 6 foot tall. So he is 2 feet, almost 3 feet taller than me. And I wear a shoe size of a 10, and his was a 37. So if you are asking some of your dads or uncles or grandpaps, usually men have a bigger shoe size than women, but 37 is very, very large to have. So look how tall he is, standing next to all of his children too. Our next state is Michigan. Many of you have probably been to Michigan, whether for maybe visiting or to go to the Great Lakes, or maybe even some hockey tournaments or skiing tournaments. It's divided up into the upper and lower peninsulas by the Straits of Mackinac, which link Lakes Michigan and Lake Huron together. The two parts of the state are connected by a 5-mile-long Mackinac Bridge, the world's longest suspension bridge. Michigan is the only bipeninsular state. The lower peninsula of Michigan is sometimes called the Mitten because of its shape. So Michigan kind of is like a swoop over. There's 2 little parts of it. Michigan is the only state in the United States that touches 4 of the 5 Great Lakes. Huron, Michigan, Erie, and Superior does not touch Lake Ontario. Michigan has the world's only floating post office. It's a boat called J.W. Westcott's 2. It delivers mails to ships as they are underway. So I thought that was a really cool fact. All right, let's talk about the Midwest, the climate in the Midwest. We know that it's very flat and has a lot of plains areas. So we know that a tornado kind of gains momentum on those flat areas. It doesn't have anything stopping. It doesn't have any hills or mountains. So it just gains speed. And that's why we call some of the states in the Midwest Tornado Alley, because they are so flat and there's nothing really stopping the tornado. So the winter is cold with lots of snow, just like us. Spring brings rain, just like us. Summer is warm and humid, kind of like us. And fall or autumn, it cools down with changing color on leaves. So their climate is very similar to the climate we actually have here in the Northeast and in Pittsburgh. Many of the states in the Midwest are part of Tornado Alley. That is an area that gets many tornadoes every year. All right, our next state is Wisconsin. Has anyone ever been to Wisconsin? Are you a cheesehead? All right. Wisconsin has over 14,000 lakes and 7,446 streams and rivers. So it's very, very lots of lakes, lots of water there. Wisconsin is the dairy capital of the United States and is sometimes called America's Dairyland. And 15% of the entire country's milk is from Wisconsin. So that's why we call sometimes the football team the cheeseheads, because they have their big production is dairy. Now, the first practical typewriter was designed in Milwaukee in 1867. If you're not exactly sure what this is how people typed before there was printers and computers. So you put your piece of paper in there and you typed on it, and it kind of punched the letter into it. So when you messed up, you had to use your whiteout and go back to cover up what you messed up. So it was very hard. It was very hard, and you had to take your time to make sure that you didn't mess up a lot. This one is very fun. Seymour, Wisconsin is the home to the Hamburger Hall of Fame. So if you're into hamburgers, Wisconsin is the place for you. And then Harley Davidson, the motorcycle, was founded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1903. Now, that looks like a bicycle to me, but this may have been the first motorcycle because look, it has a little engine there. All right, next one is Minnesota. They call it Minnesota. If you're from Minnesota, you may have a little bit of an accent. The Mall of America is over 9.5 million square feet in size. So the Mall of America is in Minnesota, and it is a huge, huge mall that you can shop at. This one I love. The first Target store opened in Roseville on May 1st, 1962. This one is really interesting to me. The Skyway system in Minneapolis allows people to live, eat, work, and shop in nearly 5 miles without ever going outside. So it looks like this little ramp here, or like kind of like a Skyway, almost like it's like a walking subway. This goes about 5 miles long, and you can shop and eat and go to work and kind of get off. So I'm going to certainly look up more facts on that one because that is really interesting to me. There was 2 students in Minnesota who invented rollerblades when they were looking for a way to practice hockey during the off season. So thanks, kiddos, if you like rollerblading. Then next one is Iowa. Iowa is the only state name that starts with 2 vowels. The eastern and western borders of Iowa are entirely made of water. Iowa is also the largest producer of corn among all states. The Hawkeye State nickname comes from the Ohioan Native American Chief Blackhawk. And then campers and motorhomes are manufactured in Winnebago County. They're called Winnebagos. So if you've ever went camping or stayed in one of these, you can drive it and then kind of sleep in it. So those are all from Iowa. Our next one is Missouri. So 8 different states border Missouri, making it the state with the highest number of neighboring states. Tennessee also has 8 bordering states. So Missouri is here in the red, so you can look right here. There are 8 different states that actually touch it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there it is. There's 8 different states that kind of touch that one. Tennessee also has 8. The tallest monument built in the United States was the Gateway Archway in St. Louis. It was 630 feet tall. The soft drink Dr. Pepper was introduced at 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. 7-Up also was invented in St. Louis. This is my favorite. Ice cream cones were first served in 1904 at the Louisiana Purchase Exposition World's Fair in St. Louis. Thank goodness. I love me some ice cream. All right, and then some special landmarks of the Midwest. You know a landmark is an important place. So let's see what they can be man-made things, such as a monument. They can be historical locations. They can also be things created by nature that are unique in some way. Here are some of the famous landmarks in the Midwest. So we have the St. Louis Archway, Mount Rushmore, and I'm not sure what that one is. Here we are, North Dakota now. In 1982, Rutland went into the Guinness Book of World Records with the cooking and eating of the world's largest hamburger. Get this, it was 3,591 pounds. Holy smokes. North Dakota also grows more sunflowers than any other state. It's mostly rural. It's the most rural state with farms covering more than 90% of the land. So we know that rural is more country and urban is more city-like. So North Dakota is very, very rural. And look at the picture here, very, very farm-like. North Dakota is the only state in the nation to never have an earthquake. Moving on to its brother or sister, South Dakota. Mount Rushmore in this group is famous for the carvings of Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt. The Badlands of South Dakota were created by volcanic action as well as wind and water erosion. So this is so cool. The Badlands here are really, really neat because they they are like all these volcanic kind of looking things that were carved by the wind and erosion and water. My parents actually took a little trip a couple years ago and took some pictures of the Badlands. I'll have to see if I can find those. The largest and most preserved Tyrannosaurus rex fossil in the world was discovered by Sue Hendrickson near Faith, South Dakota in 1990. So that's not that long ago. The fossil was named Sue in Sue Hendrickson's honor. Now this one is super cool. Mitchell, South Dakota is the name of the world's only corn palace built with 3,500 bushels of ears of corn. So if you actually look in your social studies book or Google corn palace, you'll be able to see pictures of everything on this building is made of corn. So you can either Google that when you're done or check it out in your social studies book. And I have the page at the back at the end of this presentation for you. I think we're getting to the end here. Nebraska. The 911 system of emergency communications, now used nationwide, was developed and first used in Lincoln, Nebraska. There are 4 historical trails across Nebraska, including the Oregon, Lewis and Clark, Mormon, and Pony Express. In 1927, Nebraska invented the powdery soft drink named Kool-Aid. The biggest mammoth fossils ever found were in Lincoln County. Okay, Kansas. Amelia Earhart was the first woman granted a pilot's license by the National Aeronautics Association and the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She was from Kansas. Dodge City is the windiest city in the United States with an average wind speed of 14 miles per hour. So it's windy all the time there. Kansas leads the nation's production in wheat. And Walt Disney opened his first animation studio in Kansas City. Supposedly, he fed a small mouse in the building, which later was said to be the inspiration for Mickey Mouse. Okay, and that was our last state in the Midwest. So if you want to read more about the Midwest, check out your social studies books. You already read lesson 1 of the Midwest. You can read lesson 2. It's on pages 242 to 245. And then lesson 3 begins on page 246 and through 249. But if you want to check out something cool, Google the Corn Palace. It's such a cool place. And they actually have a website too that will show you if you wanted to pretend to take a tour of it. So check that out. So your job for social studies this week is to write down 5 of the most interesting facts from this presentation and put them in a full sentence, and then you're going to submit them to the Dropbox this week. In a few short weeks, we are going to pick our states for our state project, and then we're going to get started. All right, hopefully you guys have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.